Welcome back to the Humble Market Timer YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Now today's video will be on the company MP Materials, ticker symbol MP. Is it a buy? Before we move any further, let me show you my disclaimer. Once again, these are my own thoughts, not investment advice. And we'll move forward. Now, I chose this particular company because I think it's a very critical company because it's right in the middle of this trade war that we have going on now between the U.S. and Donald Trump and China. And about a month ago, or maybe even a little later than a month ago, a little longer than a month ago, China, as part of retaliation, they put a restriction on exports of certain rare earth elements. One of those elements in particular was antimony. And as part of this, the going back and forth of Trump increasing tariffs and steadily increasing and then China retaliating, in the past couple days, China has imposed new export restrictions on rare earth elements. And these elements are extending beyond just the original ones that they initially put restrictions on. It says China has imposed new export controls on 7 additional rare earth elements. And these are crucial to modern technology such as jet engines and electric vehicles. Also included in that would be a lot of things that we make for military defense. So this is a pretty critical thing that China has put on us as part of a retaliation for us increasing tariffs. Here's the reason why that's important. If you look at the rare earth mining locations, there are 14 in the world that are producing. And what's interesting and what's critical about what they've done is that China controls, or China is responsible for 80 to 90% of the production of rare earth elements. The rest of the world does that 15 to 10%. And if you look on this chart, there's only one place in the U.S. that produces rare earth elements, and that happens to be Mountain Pass, California, and that is the MP and MP Materials. So this company is one of the few companies, and is the only company in the U.S. that produces these new rare earth elements that China has recently put restrictions on. So that is what makes this company very important and why it's something that you should possibly consider as a buy or something you should maybe look at as a potential purchase as an investment. Now let's look into the chart of MP. And as you can see from the chart, it initially, when it IP'd, it had a pretty big move, but in the last 2.5 years, it has been in a steady decline up until about September or August of 2024. And at that point, we had a reversal when it finally crossed this long-term downtrend line. And you can see that it spiked and the moment it crossed that downtrend that it had been experiencing for over 2 years. And as you can see, since then, it has steadily been increasing. So that in itself, just looking at the chart visually, you can see that the company was in a long downtrend and is recently gotten to the point where it is moving out of that downtrend and is starting to accelerate higher. You can see in the RSI, it had trended down, and it started to have a bit of a cup bottom, and it is curled out of that cup bottom and has been moving up, and it has been trending inside this parallel, and it hit the top of the parallel recently and has pulled back quite a bit from hitting the top of that parallel, but it's still in an uptrending movement. Typically, when you see that a chart is moving up and uptrending, the buy signal is when it hits the lower portion of the parallel that it's in. And you see that it's, after hitting a top, it's worked its way back near the bottom of that parallel. Same as applied looking at the price action. You can see that it has moved to this, I made a second parallel right here. It moved to the middle of that parallel and hit all the way back down to the bottom of the parallel, went back up to the top of the midpoint line, and is going back down to the bottom. So we are in a point where it is getting to be a spot, or if not getting to be right now, I think it's a good chance of really having a move up, because it is hitting that bottom portion of the parallel, and that is generally, particularly if it holds in that area, a key buy signal. Now, one other point I wanted to bring up to you is I want you to look at this particular formation that we have. You see we have a shoulder here, and then we have a head, and it dipped back down to the neckline, and then we had a quick shoulder here, and then it broke the neckline. But what I want to show you is, look at this inverse head and shoulders. I talk a lot about head and shoulders pattern. This is an inverse head and shoulders pattern, where you have a head in the middle and you have two shoulders. And just like with a regular head and shoulder pattern, if you break below the neckline, you tend to get a strong selling pressure and the stock moves lower by quite a bit. The same applies on the reverse with an inverse head and shoulder. Once you break the neckline of an inverse head and shoulder, you are then in a position where you could get huge moves up in the stock price. And as you can see, it broke the neckline, moved to the midpoint of this parallel. And oftentimes what you do is, once you break a neckline, you tend to recheck. The price action tends to recheck at the neckline after it's moved past the neckline. So this action is very common, where you break the neckline, and now we have retested this neckline. Now, with this news out now about these recent restrictions and MP Materials being right in the heart of these particular restrictions, and it is the only company in the U.S. currently that is producing these rare earth elements, you got to believe that we're going to have quite a bit of bounce off of this neckline, off of the bottom portion of this parallel. Also, looking at the RSI, looking at a potential bounce off the bottom portion of this parallel, I can really see, based on all these factors, a potential huge move up higher in MP Materials. Again, based on the news, and based on the chart, and based on the fundamentals of what's going on, I truly believe that right now MP Materials could be quite a buy and could give you quite a bit of upside at this point. So be on the lookout for that. Hope you enjoyed the video. Again, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.